presidential historian Doug Wead on that, and the daunting, very, very tall figure that is Barbara Bush in that memory. What do you think, Doug?
Yeah, I think one thing missing the last couple days in all this discussion, Neil, is how bright she was. When I met her, she was reading 2 or 3 books a week, and then she made that horrible transition to audiobooks because she could no longer read. But imagine someone consuming that many books, the discussions you could have on art and on history and culture. She was amazingly well informed. One of my fondest memories was going to Disney World together. We ended up going to Epcot Center so George could eat Chinese food, and Barbara and I talked about books all night. And the other thing missing is the love affair between George H.W. Bush and Barbara Bush. This is a marriage that shouldn't have worked. They were married too young. They had too much grief with the loss of Robin. They were separated too often throughout. Any one of those 3 would cause divorce in most marriages. But Barbara and George were able to reinvent their relationship over the years. They decided to stay together, to work things out. It made all the difference in the world, contributed to this great success of all of their children. And I remember one night in Michigan out on a tarmac in the middle of the campaign, we're sitting in the limousine. It's late at night, exhausted, and she's going to go on a separate jet for another location. I'm going to go back with the vice president on Air Force 2, and they're sitting in the limo together. I said, I'm out of here. Barbara snapped, you stay right where you are. I'm the one that's leaving. So I sat in the car. There's George and Barbara Bush tenderly holding hands, whispering to each other like teenagers in agony over the fact they were going to have to separate for a night on the campaign trail to get elected president of the United States. They loved each other, and he was holding her hand when she passed away.
Amazing. You know, I've told, I don't know how true the story is, but it's certainly funny to me and would ring true, that he desperately wanted to ask her out, and she loved to dance, and at their first dance, he didn't want to dance. So instead, they talked at the table, and that's when she says she fell in love with him. I knew he had 2 left feet, but I thought he was a great guy. And
she loved
history was scored there. I wish I could have gotten away with that with my wife, because it was sad afterwards with the dancing and everything else. Do you think, though, Doug, when we look back, I mean, we remember prominent First Lady's historical figures, and that she's certainly a very historical figure, just being the mother and the wife of the president, to say nothing of others in their public service, and it continues in the media and for their grandchildren. This is a family that has played a very prominent role in our culture and our politics and our media to this day. That's remarkable.
It's remarkable, and someday your great-grandchildren will be sitting on the living room floor looking it up at whatever the TV will be of that time, watching whatever the Netflix version will be of that time, and they'll be watching a 20-part series about Barbara Bush, and they'll look up and say to the family, did you know anything about this woman, Barbara Bush? Because the impact of her children and her life, what she made happen, she was the fountainhead of all of this and the source of all of this. And the secret to me of her life was lighten up. Don't take yourself so seriously and your goals and your plans so seriously, and don't take life so seriously. And I think the Bushes were able to achieve so much because she took that pressure out of the equation.
Melania Trump arriving right now. Doug, we look at this and the unique crowd this has gathered from Barack Obama, Michelle, and Bill, and Hillary Clinton, and Chelsea Clinton was seated a short time ago. Melania Trump's arrival is interesting because we learned this past week that Melania Trump and Laura Bush, and you can see Michelle Obama arriving as well with the former president. It's remarkable that despite all the kind of attention this gets in the media about friction between the Bushes and the Trumps, it might be overstated, overdone. And there's Melania, and she has sat down with Laura Bush only a couple of months after her husband became president. Here she is today. I wonder if we in the media just overstate that.
Yeah, these politicians, they have to forgive each other. And I heard someone earlier say, well, Barbara Bush didn't forgive. She forgave me. And when A&E did their biography of the 90th birthday of Barbara Bush, at her request, they had me come on to do some historical commentary. And you have to forgive in politics. That's the nature of it.
But what was the dust-up with you and her? I didn't quite understand that.
Well, it was the taping. It was the taping of the family and the Bush family, which I did with permission, but then continued on without permission, and it was a mistake. But it was healed because of her reaching out. I remember once in the White House, George H.W. Bush, there was a feud going on. He said, if I can sit down with Gorbachev, you guys ought to be able to sit down and figure this out. And I remember how bitter they were over the Clintons. I had phone conversations with Bush members, including the two presidents, and they were very upset with Bill Clinton. It was based on moral grounds, principle grounds, but they ended up becoming great friends. You can't succeed in politics and hold a grudge. And I notice it with Donald Trump. You know, you look at him sitting with Rubio and Ted Cruz. I wouldn't be surprised if this whole thing heals.
Yeah, I tend to think Donald Trump, they're far more pragmatic than is led on, and not nearly the grudge holders that is sort of carried on. But thank you, Doug, so much. Former